Okay, I'll call to order the Finance Committee meeting for Monday, March 11th, 6 p.m. Let the record show that all aldermen are here with the exception of Alderman Anastasia and Council President Crawford, who will be here shortly. Approval of the minutes from the previous committee meeting, Tuesday, March 5th. I have a motion?
Motion.
Okay. Second?
Sorry.
Alderman Panis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Under unfinished business, we have the 24-25 budget. So we've gone around and we've talked about, you know, streamlining the process some, and I know the alderman and the mayor, and I'm sure the department heads will appreciate that also. One of the things that was brought up to me in a couple of areas, one is the 4% increase, having to potentially break the tax cap again. And the other thing is that there was a notation that there were several areas that we were underexpended or significantly overexpended in the projected final numbers for 23-24, and yet we were asking for often the same amounts in that line item this coming year. So with that, I will give it to the mayor for who is up first.
Yeah. Chris, you ready to go?
Can we come
Well,
down
how
and
about
sit
you?
at the
Please,
table?
come on down. Come on down. Yes.
All right, first of all, good evening, everybody. It's nice to be here tonight to discuss the budget with you again for the upcoming year. Per your request, I believe what we're trying to do is streamline things. So on the spreadsheet, you'll see some highlighted items. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. And if anybody has any questions, please interject. So we'll start right on the top, 7140, which is our youth and recreation personnel service line. We have a request for an increase of $9,000 in that line item. Why is that? This department is very heavily affected by our minimum wage increases. In the last year and a half, we've gone from $13.20 an hour to currently $15 an hour to a projected $16 an hour come January 1, 2025. And bear in mind, with that increase for the lower folks, we also have to give subsequent increases to our other part-time people to maintain that balance, meaning our cleaners, a couple of my part-time managers that I have, so their pay also goes up. So the vast majority of that $9,000 increase is just for the two items that I had there. The third leg of that is increased activity. So the more that we're open, the more activity that we're doing, the busier that we are, we've got to have more people on staff to adequately serve the public. So that's where that $9,000 request is coming in from. That is the only major increase for that line item. Any questions on that budget at all from anybody? No? Okay, moving on to budget number 2, which is 7150, which is our pools and recreation center. You're going to see the first highlight is under our chemical line item. Again, I doubled that line item. Again, I'm anticipating, we have pool usage. We're also increasing, also projecting a price increase, and thirdly, the splash park. So that is why that number has been doubled. Again, these are projection. Under light and power and fuel for heat for the facility, you're going to see the requests there. I think they more adequately represent where we're going to end up being. Because again, increased usage, longer seasons, of course the utility bills are going to go up. That's just part of doing business. And the other one that I have highlighted there, it was not a $1,000 increase, it was a $900 increase, but it's something new. That is for our licensing of our TVs that we're required to do. That was a $900 fee per year that we're going to have to budget from here on out. That is a requirement. We had a legal opinion on that, so that is why that increase is there. Are there any questions on the rec center? Yes, sir.
Yep, I have 2 questions. One, that we get the necessary paperwork or whatever we needed to make it where the pool can even open. Because last I remember, there was a situation where it was closed for a health reason.
Pool was not closed for health
Okay.
reasons. The pool was, we were allowed to keep that pool operating for the last week and a half of the season. That is when they inspected it. We are not allowed to reopen that pool until it is repaired and re-inspected by our Cattaraugus County Health Department.
Okay, so it is repaired then, or?
It is not
It is
repaired.
not repaired.
It is not repaired.
So we're still waiting on the, to see what the underground piping was and whether or not if they were to snake that, look it through it with the cameras, see what we might need to do for cost with that before we were looking to do anything to move forward, if that's my memory of things. To that end, we'll have to put that on our parks and add that to there.
The other question I had was, if they were to start the construction on that, what was the projected time frame that the pool was gonna be down? Did I say if we did get to the splash pad and getting it installed?
We have a meeting tomorrow with CPL, and we'll have quick answers for you tomorrow.
Okay, because I think that plays a lot of bearing on that increase of the 15K, because if there's no pool, then the chemicals don't need to go up, and then hence the lighting and the heating. If you have no pool, you have no splash pad. If it's not gonna be done until September, then right off the bat, that's not opening this year, so that's why I was asking.
And I do have one question, because line on the light and power, the projected expenditure is gonna be 54,000, and we had budgeted 45. But you think that 50 will,
Again, just kind of like
Take
what
care of it?
Alderman Robinson just said, there's gonna be some bearing here with the pool and the splash park rolling. So again, it's an estimate, it's a guesstimate, but could it be higher? Yes. Could it be lower? Yes.
and the same thing kind of with the pool, with the chemicals, it looks like the projected was 10,000, so about 11,000 for this year, and we only opened the pool, so you're anticipating that the splash park open will double that?
Actually, this past year, we spent almost 14,000 for chemicals. Last summer, you're looking at the year prior, but this year we spent nearly 14,000. It's that middle
Yes,
number there.
sorry, I was yep.
But like I said, I'm projecting an increase in cost because it never goes down. And, you know, the doubling of it is kind of just an educated, until I see specifically how these pumps work and how long we're gonna be in operation, it's, you know, we're gonna know more after we go through this for a year.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions on the pools or the recreation center? None? Okay, our next line is the youth bureau programming. There's actually no increases in that, and actually the amount goes down. Any questions on the youth bureau?
Chris,
Yes, sir.
what's the decrease? Are we taking any services away from that
Okay.
program?
Yeah, what that is, Jason, is we used to, for the 6-week summer rec program, we used to staff all 3 housing courts. The demand there has greatly diminished. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of having one person in each facility, I'm gonna have a floater. So we've gone from 3 to 1, which I think will work out better. We can still get the kids on the bus, we can still get them to the rec center and serve them. You know, they're just, the demand just isn't there the way it used to be. Okay. Our next one is the historical property or Bartlett House. Again, there's really no significant change on that. Any questions on historical property or Bartlett House at all?
Why is Bartlett House on the year budget? Doesn't seem like it fits with Parks and Rec.
All I can tell you is ever since I took over, it's been there, and I manage it and do what I can for it, and I think it's a great asset and resource to not only the city residents, but our, visitors and our neighboring people. Why it's there, I don't know.
Chris, I know in my time on the council, the Bartlett House has never really had any huge expenses or issues there. But I'm just curious if we have inspections or things on the property to make sure there's no big issues that are coming up, with structure or roof or
I think the mayor,
foundations,
I think
things
the
like
mayor
that?
can answer this. Are we having that building looked at by,
Yes, we're having it evaluated right now, and we will have a request under capital projects.
anything else under that? Before I move on to, okay, adult recreation, that's our John J. Ash Community Center. Again, we're requesting $3,000 increase under personnel. And again, the reasons are pretty much the same as I stated before. All of our wages have gone up, and we're getting more increased activity over there. So thus our revenues have also gone up. Revenues were usually around 12 to 13,000. Last year they were over 15,000. This year I think we'll do a little bit better than that. So I've changed the marketing for that facility to get more things going. Again, we're limited with space and we're limited with parking, but we do the best that we can with what we have. So that is why that $3,000 request is there. Any questions on the John Astor?
Any questions?
The question I have, Johnny, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I was a couple
No,
minutes
go
late.
for it.
Back probably, in the newspaper, I saw we were expecting a full-time additional staff for parks. Did I miss that presentation already?
No, that's
okay.
that's included in this budget request. That $9,000 increase has nothing to do with that position. Again, it was based upon our minimum wage increases and our part-time increases based upon that. The request for the additional person, again, is many of the same reasons we talked about last year. We've only become busier, and that's a good thing. We want to be able to adequately serve not only our customers, some of which are our own taxpayers, many of which are our visitors. We want them to keep coming back to Olean, not only to the rec center, but come to our restaurants, to our stores, spend their money, enjoy the community. So we are busier than we've ever been.
So if it's not in this budget, then where is that?
It's included in that total.
So that was my question.
Yeah,
Where-
the increase is not due to the full-time position. The increase is due to the minimum wage increase, the part-time wage increases, and the elimination of the 2 part-time assistant managers.
Okay,
I guess
so,
I'm confused.
okay, so I just want to make sure that I have it. Have you already eliminated the 2 part-time?
No, I have not.
So this is basically the presentation you had before, which is to eliminate 2 part-time, consolidate into 1 full-time.
Correct. Correct.
And how much, and you at that time had projected an increase in the total number of hours that would be available.
Right, because we are still not servicing the early morning skate and shoot that we should be doing all season long. We are still not open long enough on Saturday and Sunday nights to adequately put more activity there. And let's also bear in mind, we're gonna have a splash park that's gonna be opening at some point in time, that's gonna account for many more hours. And right now, we only have 2 pool operators, and they need to be certified even for a splash park. That's New York State Bather Code. So, we have over 55 school groups come to the ice rink in the last 4 months. So, last year we had a 6% increase in revenue from the recreation center. This year I'm projecting at least 6, maybe 7%. So we're moving forward. We have a bigger demand. One of the things that COVID did, again, it was a very tragic and terrible thing really for the economy and for obviously the folks that suffered through it. But one thing it did for us is it led to a huge, and I mean huge, demand and request for our services. Not only at the rec center, at the John Ash Center, at the Bartlett House, at our pools. So, you know, we need to be able to adequately staff, maintain, and take care of these properties and equipment. Because the last thing I want to do is come to you and say, hey folks, I need $500,000 for X, Y, and Z. You know, the recreation center is now into year 7 post-renovation, and we're starting to see some wear and tear. Nothing to be alarmed about, but it's something we gotta stay on top of and take care of it while it's small dollars. And to adequately do that, you've gotta have the help to do it. We're proud of that facility. That facility is really a gem for the city as well as our park system. And one of the things I'm trying to do too is to market our park system. You know, we never had a circus down at Gargoyle Park for many years. Lewis and Clark called last year, and I got them here. They're coming back again. We got disc golf at our parks. We got 3 tournaments at Guard Road. I wanna do some things across the street at Lincoln Park with the bistro building and things. We have to market what we have, and we have to maintain what we have. So, in order to do that, I need some help, and I need your help to do that.
John?
I'm going to actually completely agree with Chris on that. We are investing, have invested massive amounts into our, I mean, let's face facts. The direction that the American economy itself is going is service-based, is recreation, is hospitality and tourism. And that's, you know, besides obviously the key services that we provide are the residents of Olean, the recreation area is another revenue driver that doesn't tax our residents. You know, these are services that are sold to people that come and use our rec center, will use our splash park, will use the pools and so on as we continue to reactivate all of these different spaces. So, I mean, if what the numbers are showing us is the elimination of the part-time, and we can fit in a full-time assistant manager here that will be vested, committed to help grow and develop programs. We'll be able to, you know, to take on the training to better run our services that we're investing in. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think it should be something that we take into consideration into this budget.
Chris, in terms of just kind of full disclosure with the costs associated with the position, and you've made your case there, I believe, what would be our also increase in terms of our fringe for that full-time?
Our increase, excuse me,
For
what?
fringe?
You'd have to ask Lenz that question, I'm not sure.
Does that get built into this? Personnel services, is that fringes as well? Do you know?
Yeah, mine is, because it's separate, it's over.
Oh, because that all goes into,
Admin or,
Special items.
yeah, special items.
And undistributed employee benefits.
Yeah.
And the fringe benefit is 55%.
so fringe on any position you said is 55%? Okay, so just so we can kind of then have a number, where are we at in terms of salary for a position, for going to a full-time position?
I believe we're right in the mid-40s,
Like mid-40s meaning,
44, 45,000.
okay. And so that 44 or 45 is already, that's what's built in here?
That's what's built into that 100 line item, correct?
Okay.
So we would expect to see about half of that, about probably about 22. You said 50%, right?
Yeah, I did 45.
Yeah,
So,
24,000?
yeah.
Okay.
And bear in mind, we've also built into this projected budget a $25,000 increase in revenue. So,
And would that take into account the morning skate and shoot and all that? that you're-
absolutely,
you're
the morning
talking
skating,
about?
shoot, and doing some more ice bocce at night on the weekends, as well as pushing for some more ice hockey tournaments. So, we're on the right path, we need to keep climbing.
Do you have a list, or do you have a ballpark number, the number of tournaments over the last couple of years? Are we staying pretty steady? Are we increasing by a couple? How's that ice time?
We're seeing an increase, not really so much in tournaments, but we're seeing an increase in overall ice usage, meaning practice and just regular game time. Next year, we hope to have St. Bonaventure at least host one home playoff game, maybe 2. But ice usage is up. But remember, like right now, this month, we're getting ice usage from Bradford because their rink is closed for the year. So we try to market it as much as we can and have it used. That's what it's there for.
Quick question.
Yes.
I know you said night, like ice bocce. Have you thought about, or is there any interest in like curling club tournament? You know, like a curling night.
The issue with curling is what it does to the ice. It actually chews it up quite a bit. We do have a curling tournament scheduled 2 weeks from now. The run by a private entity, but we get ice time off it. With the ice bocce, you know, you do that on the ice that's already chewed up, you're not really scribing lines or digging in the ice. That's something we really probably want to stay away from, except maybe the last couple of weeks, which is why we scheduled this tournament in mid-March. But the ice bocce is basically, you know, that's something we can get leagues going in the winter, and people are complaining there's nothing to do, but we have to have somebody to staff that.
Right.
That's part of the reasoning for the request for the second, or the other manager.
The question I have, I guess I'm going back to the full-time position. I'm not picking any, I'm just trying to get
All right.
clarification.
Sure.
Is these two part-timers that we're eliminating, are they 20-hour employees or are they 30-hour employees? I'm just trying to compare apples to apples. Are we gonna get a 40-hour employee and lose two 30-hour employees as part-time?
You're still gonna have two part-time employees on staff. They're gonna cover the weekend out, the holiday hours, anything that's outside of the hours that a full-timer would work, so we're not adding overtime.
So we're not eliminating two part-time positions.
We have 4 part-time managers, we're gonna go to 2.
So you go from 4 to 2 in the
Correct.
full-time.
Correct. Correct.
So the two that we're getting rid of, I guess, are they 30-hour employees or are they 20-hour employees?
They're in the 20 to 25-hour a week range, because I can't work them more than 29 hours a week.
So, okay.
Hence, that's part of the problem too, which we talked about last year. I cannot work them more than 29 hours a week if they're available to work.
So I just wondered, before we vote on the budget, if the mayor could give us a proposal, what this full-time person's gonna cost with French versus we're eliminating 2, if we can get a cost of 2 salaries that we're eliminating. So I can have a better understanding of my fifth brain here, but.
That's pretty much what we asked last year.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, so we can see it.
See it in writing.
See it in writing instead of, because I'm still sitting here processing, I know I'm not stupid, but I know I heard eliminate 2 part-time, but then we're not getting rid of 2, we have 4 full-time and 2 part-time.
Well, 4 part-time, and you're going down to 2 part-time. And then adding the 1 full-time, and I think the question is the same as
So we're
last
going
year.
to 7
Are,
employees.
are we gonna have the same amount of hours for the same amount of money, or are we gonna lose hours? And I think that was something we looked at last time, right? Is, and I think, Jen, you had brought it up too, right, the hours. So I think we just need to have that piece, and I don't know if we gotta draw it out today, but if you could get that to
Sure.
us in kind of the,
Yep.
you know, maybe with Lens, here's kind of the average of hours they worked, here is kind of how much was expended, for that, and then the projected, and then I think we would have it,
We can do that.
Yeah, with the fringe.
yeah,
We can get that information for you.
Yeah,
okay.
we get that.
I think that'll help.
Sure.
Can I also ask a follow-up?
Sure.
What is the, what do I wanna say, the people that are, the staffing that you have at the rec center, how close are they to retirement? What is the coverage, you know, as you're trying to train? Because I would imagine running a facility like that isn't something you can learn overnight.
No, it isn't. I've got one senior manager that is possibly planning on retirement about 1 year from now.
Okay. And then beneath that position is
We have one full-time person.
one full-time
right
person
now.
who is kind of training, learning the ropes,
Correct,
et cetera. Okay.
correct.
So Chris, I think one more question, then, I think we're good. So, how many, help us to understand. So right now, this, under the Parks and Recs, how many, and I think this is where, this is helpful, and then if we know, under your Parks and Recs, you have, 4 part-time, and then yourself, and what other position do you have?
So at the senior center, we have one part-time manager.
Thank you.
At the Bartlett House, we have one part-time manager, plus our city historian. The Recreation Center, we just talked about. The youth and rec programs, those are just part-time people, for both summer and winter.
So, The rec center is the 4 part-time, and you and 1 other full-time?
Currently I have 2 full-time people that work out of the recreation center.
Okay, all right. Thanks. Okay. Any other questions for Chris?
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
This year's or
I think that was sufficient.
Yeah, we got it.
So I think the headings are, just so you guys know, cut off on this one, so, we'll just have to use our best. Okay. Ready?
All right. So the 100 personal services is up, that's contractually getting a raise in June 1st. Second line on the overtime, asking for $5,000 more. We had 60 last year, probably gonna go over about 10,000. Throughout the 2023, I lost 4 officers. So we end up with overtime there. However, we ended up saving, we're probably gonna save close to $100,000 by not having those officers. So it cost us a little bit of overtime, but we saved it in 100. If that makes sense to everybody. The same for the personal services other. That includes holiday pay. It's basically the effect of the raises. 29,458.
What falls under other, chief? What is that? Personal services other?
Holiday pay for 35 officers.
Okay.
With the increase, you can cash in 10 holidays each. Okay.
Thank you.
Down to the next line, the crossing guard line, 107, increase of $1,800. It's kind of tough finding anyone that wants to go out and do the crossing guard for, it's $30 a day. So that's a $5 increase a day. For 2 guards, that's, approximately 40 weeks. It's up to about $1,800.
So, okay. So I have a question. Sorry, I'm trying to line up everything here. Okay, so in the overall budget on page 2132, there is the 10,800, but the next line is, I think those numbers got mixed up there. Crossing guard says 26,000.
So that should be parking enforcement.
Yep, I think those lines, those 2 lines are mixed up lines on that, on page 2132 in the overall budget you gave us. Yes, because it has crossing guards at 26, and it has parking enforcement at 12.6. And I think those, yeah, okay. Because I was questioning why there was such a big increase, and it really isn't.
It's not, it's a slip for the parking
Yeah.
enforcement.
Do you see that lens in there? Okay.
Ready?
Yes, thank you.
108, records clerk, that's contractual raise, 75 cents an hour.
line,
You mean 30?
230, not 230.
3120, 230. Lease on the vehicle, upfitting, and then the graphics. Okay,
How many vehicles are we leasing right now?
this will be the 7th one. So with this lease, at the end of the lease, you buy the vehicle for $1.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. 250, I asked for $1,000 increase. We have 6 SWAT rifles. The red dots need to be replaced, the sights, they're about $700 each. Some of them are as old as 19 years old. They range between 11 years old and 19 years old. The next one down, 418, other materials and supplies. When our insurance carrier was in talking to us, we do a spring range and a fall range. The spring range is pretty much the carbines. Fall range is qualification on tasers, handguns, carbines. They suggest, they really would like to see us do 4 ranges. He said if we could do 3, you know, that would be better. So the increase there is for ammunition. Down to 447, $11,781 increase. I think you guys wanted a price on dash cameras. They're about $225 a month. For 10 of them, comes up to about $2,700. And then we have handheld ticket devices that we write tickets with. So when there's a snow event, you know, when during sweeper season, the guys are out writing 100 tickets. These handheld ticket devices are what they use. They're about 5 years old. The batteries are getting so they're shot. One of the devices we actually have super glued together. So they're really getting in rough shape. They're about $8,120 for both of those. And that includes the service agreement.
So this is primarily for the dash cams and then that ticket piece, or
Right,
is
the
it?
increases, yeah. Street crimes, price of our vehicles are gonna go up about $50 each. We usually have 2 vehicles, so that's $1,200. Those are the only increases I have for my police budget. Anybody have any questions on that?
Where are we on staffing?
Down one.
Is that from a retirement?
I think the last one is from a lateral to the county.
You're going to replace it.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing very well right now. Dispatch budget, the only increase there is the 100 line, and that's contractual. That's the 75 cents the CSEA workers got. And I actually repairs the communication equipment. If we have a problem with the radios, it's very expensive. Normally I ask for $5,000. I've been lucky, so I dropped that down to 4,000. Hopefully, get by with it.
But back to staffing, there were no injuries the other night at that basketball game, was there? No, like Brandy didn't throw any elbows.
No, but she's a good basketball
Yeah,
player.
she's a great basketball player.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm, just as a side note, I thought that was awesome. That was a great event.
that was a really good event.
Yeah.
I know the school wants to, would like to do that.
Yeah.
I think they raised about $4,000.
I thought that was awesome. Very cool.
The only other thing I have is Cindy seems to be doing a good job. The town of Olean is really working with us, you know, hopefully we get kennel going, because the kennel the town of Olean has really is pretty small for all the municipalities that are using it.
So I
So I
thought
think-
that number's kind of high.
Well, I think there's perhaps an error, because it has, on page 2132, it has 20,000 in there, so it looks like it was a $40,000 increase.
So what happened is, that was a mistake Len's made last year. It was supposed to get cut 20,000 because it was at 80,000, cut it down to 60,000, and it's still, I'm asking for 60,000.
Okay, so Len's in this, it just needs to be changed to 60, it says 20 in there.
Is that correct, Len?
Okay.
Okay, so that should be 60 and it's a flat, okay, so it's not a $40,000 increase.
No increase.
I'll take my note off then. Any questions for Chief? Okay.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Chief.
You too.
How's it going?
Good, how are you, Chief?
Not bad. So I'll just run right down just like the others did.
Do you have a sheet or?
Yeah, I got a sheet for you. Lots of stuff. I don't have a spreadsheet, is that what they wrote?
It just kind of sort of.
I have my highlights here. So, I guess, actually, before I run down through that, I just wanted to talk about on the revenue side of things. I'm projecting about $200,000 increase in the ambulance revenue. Our billing rates are up and our call volume is also up. With that, of course, comes, the extra workload on the staff. But we've talked previously about changing that CF 118, and we were hoping to do that in the budget process, to be thinking about what percentage we want to bump that ambulance reserve up to. So I just figured I'd throw that out there first. As far as fire department, the 100 line, just contractual increases, the same as the police. And I don't know if the percentages are the same, but same reason. Personnel services, so this one, I'd like to bring up 120,000, which sounds like a lot, but actually that just brings it up to like a realistic estimate based on 5-year historicals. So historically, over the last 5 years, the average was 236,000 of actual paid out in overtime, and we've been massively under budgeting it. I think because everybody really wants to be optimistic, like next year's going to be lower, and it just doesn't happen. So I think we should bring it up to a realistic amount of 220.
So you're looking at $220,000 for overtime?
Yes.
So help me to understand why we have to, if we're basically fully staffed is what we've been told, how we're at $220,000 of overtime.
So there is a minimum staffing level of 7. So each shift that's on duty has to have 7 people working. Each crew has 7, 8, or 9 people, depending on our staffing levels. And whenever that drops below 7, we have to call in overtime. So we've had quite a few retirements. And, we replace the people, but it takes 6, 8, 9 months to get them trained and to the point where they can take overtime. We've also had injuries, surgeries,
Is that 7 between the two houses?
yes. So there's always a minimum of 4 at Central and always a minimum of 3 at Station 1. And then if the shift happens to have an extra person at night, usually they're just at Central.
So one of the things that's kind of been floated, and not sure how serious, but if there was a consolidation in terms of houses, would it would still be that 7, or would there be some kind of shift or change?
That's contractual.
Okay.
Minimum, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, it
so
would,
it stays 7? Okay.
it would still be at 7. I think for a city our size with our call volume, I mean, I think you could justify a 3rd station down in the west end. So I don't think it would be wise, plus with the roundabouts, with traffic, I don't think it'd be wise at all to close the station.
What did you spend year to date so far in overtime? Are you over budget in that?
Yes, we budgeted 100,000, we have spent 150, with change. And I have the 5-year historicals here if anybody wants to see that. I did consider a plan, and I discussed it with the mayor and Lyons, and we kind of opted away from it to increase the staffing. So if you were to increase the number of people per platoon up to 10, but keep that 7-person minimum, the amount of savings that you would have I could actually reduce my overtime budget if we were to do that, but you'd end up paying for it elsewhere with salaries and fringe.
I mean, that's 2 salaries, ain't it? 150,000, 236K, you're talking 3 employees at first, until they get their experience and certifications and this is.
Yeah, but then you add 50% for fringe, for insurance, for pensions, all of that. I mean, that adds up.
I thought if there was ever a time to increase the staffing, you know, we've got record call volume, we're projecting $200,000 more in ambulance revenue, and I can save a bunch of overtime money, like, this would be the year to do it, and I don't know if it is, so.
Do you have?
Does it make sense at this point to increase staffing in those platoons, say by 1?
Yeah,
See how it affects the next budget, or once you get rolling on overtime.
You mean just one person?
Yeah, not going to 3, or to 10, but 1 more person, so your normal staff can take up those overtime and start to absorb some overtime.
Like one floater?
Maybe, I'm just saying, rather than try and absorb all the overtime into staffed positions, go there a little bit, get 1 more staffed employee that you're always trying to have on, and then somebody calls off injured or whatever, you've got 1, not 3.
I don't know if, unless there's something that the crews don't, for burnout purposes, I don't think you are better off to hire additional positions as long as everyone is okay with the overtime. I think even though paying the overtime is a premium, I think typically it is cheaper than adding 3 positions with all of the benefits. If you wanted to give us a cost breakdown on that.
Well, that's essentially what the mayor and London came up with is, adding the positions would not be cheaper.
No.
The net would not be
No.
cheaper. It's cheaper to pay the overtime.
And as long as that doesn't affect burnout and the crews are willing to do that, then that's, I think, the way that's where we're at.
But I do think it's responsible to, at least this year, have a realistic expectation of what we're gonna spend on overtime.
No, I 100% agree with that. No, you put down what's gonna be real.
You don't think what Jason just brought up, hiring 1 extra person would cut down the overtime?
You still have X amount of hours that need to be covered, right? You've got 7 times however many hours. So you're gonna hire somebody, and you're still gonna have the overtime. It's still, I bet the number is still higher. And we could, maybe the chief could put together some stuff for us to look at. Like, how many hours is that, the 236 $220,000 or 236 or whatever, right? How many hours is that based on? And then compare it to add one position plus the overtime for the double. I bet you it's still gonna be higher.
I don't, so a lot of our overtime comes from summer, time when people want off, so we'll have multiple people off on vacation, maybe somebody has surgery or sick or something, so we wouldn't be able to just have one person work all that extra time, like just in a row,
So I do have, in looking at this, I see 7, 8, or 9. So anyone, if there's 7, you're always gonna have overtime because there's not enough people if somebody's off. However, I do think though that at times we can manage staffing so that there's not multiple people off at the same time. Now, if somebody goes out injured, that's different than vacations. Like we sign, I don't like it, but we sign up for our vacations months in advance, and that's so that there's not 2 off at the same time. That puts a burden. So I guess that's one of the things I would ask is just be managing kind of that personnel line to see if we can't bring some of that overtime down, because you're right, if you have multiple people off, then everybody's gonna have to work overtime. The other thing where I would see the cost is in our retirement line. So if you have people who are closer to retirement that are taking up a lot of the overtime, that actually costs us more later on, right? So those are my only two thoughts about that. Can we manage maybe vacations or something? Look, nobody likes it when, I hate it having to put I have my vacations in already through September, but it's a requirement so that we don't have, they're not paying overtime, so that they're not, because the same thing, we're at a limited number. But as long as we have 7 on a crew, you're always gonna have some overtime.
Yeah. With regards to the first part there, a lot of that is contractual with how they schedule overtime, how I can cancel overtime. If I cancel it, I have to pay them time and a half anyways. So we can have 2 people off on the same week or on the same shift up to 13 weeks throughout the year. So there's a whole long process with a bunch of contractual obligations as far as how vacations and things are scheduled.
So it sounds like the way that we have, in terms of the contractual obligations, have really locked us into overtime by agreeing to things like 2 people on the same shift off at the same time. So that's something I think that we have to be mindful of going forward, because listen, we appreciate our fire department. Anyone who has ever tried to call the fire department and there's a volunteer, and God bless the people who volunteer, because I have the greatest appreciation, but you might wait 30 minutes. At the same time, we have to find a manageable amount for our dwindling residents in terms of cost. So if there's something, or if there are ideas you have that, in terms of implementing something, but it sounds like that part of it is things that we have to be mindful of, or during contractual, it ties your hands with having to allow 2 people off in the same week, in the same shift. And it doesn't help the co-workers that they have either with that.
Throughout the years, Mayor, wasn't it always 8-man minimum? You guys must have negotiated down to 7, didn't you?
Yeah.
At some point in time, since the last time I was here. It used to be 8.
So the top chart here is, I went back and I found our call volume since 1954, since we started running the ambulance service. So the blue top line in the top chart is the ambulance call volume. The red line below it is the engine call volume. Again, going back to 1954. And then the bottom chart is our staffing. So on the bottom chart, the blue line is our total staffing, total department-wide personnel. And then the orange line down below is the minimum staffing. So you can see, call volume is trending up and to the right. If it were a stock, it'd be a great buy. Staffing has been pretty much stagnant, maybe drifting down. And then in 2006, we did reduce staffing, the minimum staffing from 8 to 7.
But to answer your question, Dave, yes,
trade-off must have been line 101, because that's guaranteed income. That, on top of what you're making, that 236 is guaranteed income. You're gonna have it, it's not going away.
Any other, okay,
3410-102 for personal services, other. That is same as what Chief Richardson mentioned for his budget. That is largely an increase for us for holiday pay. So that sees an increase. There's also, when a firefighter retires, the accruals come out of this line. And I'm projecting 2 in this budget year.
so that's 66,000, correct?
Excuse me, Chief, doesn't your Kelly time come out of that line too?
Yes, so, unused Kelly time, it rolls over 1 year and then it gets paid out. So you earn it the first year, you can use it that year, whatever you don't use, it rolls over the next year, and then at the beginning of the 3rd year, you get paid out for Kelly time. It usually runs the department anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000 in Kelly time payout.
Okay, so he was just, I was like, what's Kelly time?
Does everybody know what Kelly time is?
No, so,
Could you explain it, Chief?
Sure, so firefighters work an average of 42 hours a week, and they are not paid for those extra 2 hours. Instead, those extra 2 hours are banked. And then they're able to take 104 or 106, or whatever it works out to be, hours a year off.
I'm quitting this Olean gig, I'm just going.
106 hours off annually.
What's that?
So I'm quitting this Olean gig, I'm going to be a firefighter.
So I wanna make sure I understand, so they work an average of 42 hours, they take those 2 hours, those are banked for each week, or each week.
Yes.
So that's where that 106 hours
Yes.
is in addition to their contractual vacation,
Yes.
which is why we have such overtime. I'm guessing, right?
Kelly time could be canceled without incurring huge costs, yeah.
But it has to be paid
Still
somewhere.
gotta pay it, yeah.
So that may- Well, or you can pay them the extra 2 hours a week. You gotta staff, you have to staff,
Mhm.
24/7, 365, so.
So why wouldn't we just have them on 42 hours?
Contractually, that's how it was set up a long time ago. I do think other departments run other models, but we
Okay.
can't just change that,
Oh, just wondering.
unless we don't.
I mean, if we're
enter into
already kind of
negotiations.
paying them for, 42 hours in essence. Okay,
We're paying them for 40, and the 2 hours is built up.
but ultimately we pay for it anyways.
Yeah, we're paying for it because either they take the time off or they get paid for it after a certain amount of time.
Right, in addition to their vacation.
Kelly time probably works out in the city's benefit, as opposed to either paying them the extra 2 hours or because we can cancel it. So for instance, most people will not schedule like a vacation when they're off on Kelly time because it can be canceled. So it's really like it's time that they have, but it's not really time that they can plan on having. So some of the employees really don't like it.
But you don't lose it all together, you will get paid for it.
Eventually, yes.
So the only benefit where the city would benefit from it is if they actually worked during the Kelly time, the 2 hours. So it'd be
Right.
beneficial if the city had those 2 hours
Right.
put in with the 40, then the city would benefit from it. Otherwise, the city's not benefiting from it at all,
Right.
not that setup. It's not even
I
positive.
guess I'm behind. I thought they worked 42 hours and you paid them 40. Correct.
They work what?
42
I'm
and,
sorry, I misspoke.
okay.
I thought they worked 42
Yes.
hours and
Ah.
you paid them for 40.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I
Okay, and then they
I
have,
misspoke
okay,
on that.
okay,
And then
that's why I
they-
was saying work those, okay, got it.
And then, so let's all be on the same page,
Okay.
all right?
Thank you.
Is that right?
I didn't realize there was a
I think
mistake.
they
That's
thought,
that's on
they
me.
thought you worked 40, but you got paid 42.
No, no.
Yes.
You worked 42,
Yes.
yeah, you
Well,
work 42, and you
yeah.
take
And
2
then-
as lieu, what, as lieu?
That's why I'm like,
lieu,
wait a minute.
or whatever, you can save those hours.
Like you're comping,
Comp,
Yeah.
comp time.
it's a comp, kind
It's a
of
comp
time.
time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, yeah, so those 106 hours are really work hours that
Yes.
you're getting comp.
Yes.
So if you
I
take,
feel so much better now, thank you.
if you take,
I'm telling you.
so if you accrued Kelly time in this budget year,
Planning in
when
his
do you
career.
have to use it by?
So you're constantly using your oldest Kelly time that you've accrued. If you don't, so if you earn it this year and you don't take it off this year or next year, you get paid January 1st the following year.
That's what my question was.
You
Yes,
know what
because
rate it's
otherwise,
Is it paid at the rate that you earned it? Or is it paid at the current rate?
I don't know that.
I'm just curious.
That's kind of what I was asking.
Well,
'cause
You get
you
paid
bank
at
it
the.
20
you
years,
get
like if
paid-
you banked it at $11 an hour, 20 years,
Right.
it's $45.
So they paid overtime, I think. Yeah, hanging on 40 hours in a week by law is overtime.
I think it's paid at the current rate.
So you could bank it over a couple of years and then get paid at whatever your current rate is?
Well, yeah, I don't know how many hours they can bank. Is there a minimum or maximum they can bank?
Yeah, so the way I always figured it out is whenever they accrued more than 2 years worth of Kelly time, the excess they got paid. That was the simplest way for me to figure out.
so in essence, the city is carrying debt regarding that, quite honestly, because it's money owed. And which is really why agencies don't do that, because it really is debt. And interesting, how do we reflect that then?
I was
Should be a
just wondering.
liability.
Hmm?
Should be a liability.
Yes, it should be on, right? So
So it
anything
should
that's
be-
current, that should be reflected as a liability. So any of those Kelly time hours currently, that should be noted as a liability. So how do we reflect that, Lens? Because that's why agencies require you at the end of the year, use or lose, because, so they don't have that in essence debt. So where have we captured how much in essence debt is there? I mean, how do we know? So right now, if we had to pay out everybody, how much money is owed? How do we know that?
Let me check with that tomorrow. I'll check with payroll.
Because we should have that somewhere reflected. Right?
Yeah, but to change anything that goes with that.
No, but we should know what
Oh,
kind
I'm
of
sure.
debt the
Yeah.
city's
Oh, I'm-
carrying.
I would be very, they have to have that recorded as a liability, because it's money owed.
Yes.
Can you go back and repeat, you said the best way that you understood it?
Yeah, so the way I always figured out, when I was a captain, the Chief Richardson would come to me and say, hey, who on your crew is owed Kelly time this January? And I would always just think to myself, if anybody has accrued more than 2 years worth of Kelly time, they need to be paid the excess.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so anyone who is over 212 hours would then be paid the excess.
Yes.
So that's, okay. That's a lot of
Or 2
city
years.
liability.
Well, they're not paid they're only paid the excess, so.
Right,
they
but,
just go over
those
what they
212 hours are still liability hours for, debt hours for the city, if you will, because if they wanted, right, it has to get paid at some point,
Or used.
or used. But, yeah, okay.
I mean, if it is used, somebody's gotta be paid to fill that spot.
Not if it doesn't create overtime.
Okay.
So that's where the city benefits, is if there's 8 people working that shift, one person can say, hey, I'm going home on a Kelly day tonight, and use up some time.
Okay,
I guess that would be encouraged even.
okay,
Um,
got it.
Move
Thank
on.
you. Yep.
Okay, so 235 is the communications line. This line, we had some large cuts last year. So I'm just trying to kind of slowly work them back up. So This particular line, we need to be able to purchase radios when they break. And then also, my preference would be to keep just kind of a steady rotation of purchases. So rather than coming to you for a large capital project and saying I need $80,000 for all new radios, if I could just get like 1 or 2 new radios a year, that would be great.
We would appreciate that too, right?
It's easier for me if
Comprehensive
it's
plan
easier
for it, we're on that.
Same thing with public safety equipment. So this one kind of ebbs and flows also based on when we purchase a new fire engine. A lot of times we'll put right in the specifications, the bid specs, that the supplier is going to put axes and halogen bars and ladders and hose and all of our equipment that we routinely use. So again, it was 20,000. We cut it last year at 4,000, so I'm just trying to get it back up a little bit. Another increase in that line that we've seen is our gas meters, so to monitor for carbon monoxide and natural gas and everything. They seem to be causing us some issues with like maintenance and upkeep. So uniforms and protective equipment, another line that was cut. So same thing with the turnout gear, just like by a few sets. We have 2 vacancies currently that we'll be looking to fill this year, and then I just had another firefighter approach me who will be retiring probably in the next, he didn't give me a date, but he said soon. So I'm anticipating actually hiring 3 this summer, so that'd be three new sets of turnout gear that I'll need to purchase.
And just to let you know, so that was a $20,000 increase, right? But I agree that we want to do it on a regular basis so that we're not having huge numbers, so.
Yes. And some of that is contractual for uniforms, I believe
Yep.
24,000 is. Other materials, this line is used for primarily for the fire prevention materials that we hand out to schools or when kids come to the fire station for tours. So that is just an inflation increase in paper products. Buildings and grounds. So this one was cut last year from 17.5 down to 10, and we're over budget this year. We had a couple urgent repairs that we needed to do. Fire alarm panel got wet. We had to replace it. That was expensive. And then we had issues with bay doors, springs breaking. One over at Fire Station 1, the spring broke on a Sunday, so we had to call twin tier overhead doors for an emergency call on a Sunday to come fix our doors, so that's expensive too. I would like to take this up a good amount. And my thought here, so the stations are we're kind of outgrowing the station with the services that we provide. The increase in ambulance calls, now we're doing our own fire academies, which I wholeheartedly support. But all that, there's just more and more accumulating in the stations. So there's one safety issue that I'm really targeting to try to fix, and that's the stair treads at the fire stations. The gentleman from our comp insurance carrier, he wrote a note down at both fire stations, but it did not end up in his final report. So, but he did say that they need to be replaced. But anyways, so I want to increase this line and again avoid a large capital project. I would rather have some excess funds here for the guys to be able to fix things around the stations. Another thing that I talked to the mayor about, Central Fire doesn't have an ADA compliant bathroom on the first floor. We're a public facility. We give tours to all sorts of different groups. So I think that's a worthwhile endeavor. We've got some issues with the exterior cladding, which I don't think this amount will cover, but the exterior cladding probably needs to be addressed too at Central Fire. So it's water's just getting into the building. But I figure, if we bump this line up, we'll do what we can in this budget year and maybe do it again next year, or maybe do the other station next year.
How much are we over budget this year?
We budgeted 10, and I think we're up to 13 or 14,000.
Okay.
So not terrible.
I've got a question there. Do you, so at what point when a department is over budget, is it over budget, being over budget in a line item, but not as the department as a whole? At what point do you need to come back to the council and ask for additional appropriations, or don't you?
Well, no, we can't, we will, but as long as he's within, like, his 3410, okay, as long as we can find money at 3410,
Okay.
then he comes to,
So the entire department
yeah,
is not over budget, a line item
a
can
line,
be.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
We
thank
do,
you.
what we do is a budget transfer.
Yeah.
And then that's, now if he goes outside of like 3410, we would want to go to another budget line, then they have to come and get council permission.
All right, thank you.
The other project that we have in mind, under the buildings and grounds, we currently don't have any females that work for us, but our showers and bathrooms and stuff really, the station, Central Fire Station is built for men, for one sex, so, that's another project that we've discussed. 447 is miscellaneous fees for service. So I rearranged some things here, and tried to get a good picture of what recurring costs we have. So we actually have quite a bit. So we get our pumps tested every year, we get our ground ladders tested every year, our aerial ladders need to be tested every year, our breathing air needs to be tested quarterly, plus all the preventive maintenance on all of these things. So there's been some increase there. I think maybe we were alternating a couple of those, like every other year we'd get it done, but really the industry safety standards are every year they are to be done. That's it for the fire department.
Chief, I have a question.
Sure.
When you, the fire alarm panel,
Yes.
that was something that the city couldn't handle internally, our electric department couldn't handle it?
They did handle it.
Oh, they were.
Yes, they were involved, but the cost of the.
So that's what I was going to say. So internally, within the city, so electric department bills you guys and then they get paid similar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Only for the equipment, not the,
Oh,
not the,
Labor.
just equipment. Yeah.
Ambulance budget, the only thing I think really notable here to talk about is our LifePak cardiac monitors and stretchers and power load systems that lift the stretchers up. They are, I don't believe any of them are on warranty anymore. And replacing batteries for the monitors or electrode cables, pulse oximetry cables, preventative maintenance, same thing with the stretchers, that stuff is kind of expensive. So we can get into service agreements with this. It's $25,000 annually to cover all of these things. We just had a stretcher done like 2 months ago. So the company came down, they serviced the whole stretcher, they replaced, I think, a bearing assembly on one of the wheels, and it was like $3,200. So, the other issue why I'd really like to get into a service agreement is, if any of these items fail and a patient incurs some poor outcome because of it, it's a reportable incident to New York State Department of Health. And then they would come and investigate. Have you been doing your preventative maintenance on these things? Who's certified to do your preventative maintenance that's been doing it? And we'd be like, So I would really like to get into some type of an agreement here.
so this $25,000 would cover, you know, it's kind of like Verizon says now, hey, we'll cover every piece of equipment in your house for X amount of dollars. So is that kind of what we're saying here, $25,000, both firehouses, all those kind of things that would need maintenance and,
Yes, it would be 4 cardiac monitors, 3 power stretchers, 2 power load systems,
For how long?
1 year. So that would just be an annual thing that we'd be building into the budget. I do think the 418 line, medical supplies and materials, I do think we can reduce that down to help offset this cost a little bit. Because currently, if a battery on a light pack monitor goes, I have to use that line to replace it.
Do you have a ballpark price, what that might cost?
The battery? Yeah. No, but I can get you a ballpark.
so you
It's not-
decrease
it's not-
that
You don't run
line,
down to Fort W. Smith and get one for $5, right?
you decrease that line by 6,000 this year. And another decrease I saw, that you decrease your travel and training by 16,000.
Yes, so so $16,000 was for half of the paramedic tuition. So
Okay, so that's why we went down.
that's
to
paid over the
2,000.
last 2 years, so this coming
Okay.
year, we won't have anybody in the paramedic school, so we won't have a cost. Now, in the future, we will have to build that number back in years to come, when we send more people to that school.
Okay, I just was trying to note where I saw some decreases. So that 25,000, the 4 cardiac monitors, the 2 power stretchers, and what else did that cover? Power load devices?
3 stretchers and 2
Mhm.
power load devices.
Oh, 3 stretchers.
So, in comparison, so that contract for the service agreement is gonna be 25K. What have we spent last year in factory, where the factory didn't cover in repairs and upgrades and so forth for, because I remember we just bought stretchers, I think 2-3 years ago, COVID funds or something like that, so, yeah, the power ones.
And they've been down, like I said, they were just down, I think, in October to do that 1 stretcher. That was still covered under warranty, but I believe all the warranties are done now.
So you know what the costs were?
I don't, but I can get you historicals on what we
Yeah,
actually
it's
spent.
just something to compare, are we actually spending that much in maintenance, or, you know, if we're spending more than that, then 25 grand seems like it'd be a good trade-off, I'd say.
The number might not be very high because, like you said, all of it is new.
Yeah.
So I can tell you what we spent.
Well, yeah, I guess then a third hypothetical potential, if something was to go down, the cost of, you know what I mean? If, say, one of the batteries went down, or just to replicate, we have 3 stretchers, if one of the other ones go down next year, then what would that cost us now that we don't have that insurance, you know?
And is there a, what's the word I want to use? Do we, a deductible? That's where I want to.
No, I believe it's a complete agreement that we just come down and handle whatever a problem is.
And you've looked into a company that,
We've looked into one company that we've purchased all these products from. I don't know if we can go with another company to look into that. I can try.
well, I would like to at least have a comparable.
I don't know if any other companies are gonna be able to.
Mm-hmm.
They might have like, what's that called, it's like sole,
Proprietary?
yeah, type of. I'll look into it.
Mayors over there using big words.
Okay, any questions on ambulance?
I studied on budget terms.
Code enforcement, safety inspections, 3620. So we have contractual increases in the 100 line. The 101 line for overtime, we had nothing budgeted last year, although we have used, I think, about $500 we paid out for overtime. I believe one was some type of an emergency, urgent type matter that one of the code enforcement officers came in to handle. And then the other one, I think when they were coming to the meetings back in November, we paid them overtime. Because they were required to be here. So I just took that up to 1,000, which I think is probably fine. And then the 455 line, So this line is used for when code enforcement orders a contractor to go clean up someone's yard, or shovel their snow or whatever. So we are supposed to be reimbursed, to recuperate these costs. It doesn't happen immediately though, sometimes it goes onto their taxes. So they have used, I don't have the most current number of what they've used, but it was getting down there kind of close, so I just built in a little buffer so that they could order these things done without having to worry about it if they were running low on funds.
What is the, 450 line, the revolving revival fund?
I'm not super familiar with it. My understanding is it's very similar to the 455 line, except the 450 line is used when it's like a bank-owned property, and they're pretty confident they're gonna get the money back right away.
Okay,
That's how it was most recently explained to me.
so we really have like 30,000 we would have in there then for kind of that cleanup things, okay.
And my other lines, emergency preparedness, zoning, and demolition of unsafe buildings. There's no changes at all in those lines.
So I did have a question about the demolition of unsafe buildings.
Yep.
How much have we expended this year?
We have expended, I believe, $3,250 for the demolition of one building
One
that we
building.
drove into.
Okay,
I want to say in years past, we've paid for not just the demolition, but also the cleanup.
right.
And now we're making the owner of the property deal with the cleanup and going about it that route.
So if they don't, like the one on South Union, we go that same route where we clean it up and then it goes back on their taxes and we kind of wait?
Yes.
Okay. And you think that 17.5, given what we've got, is a good amount?
It's a hard one to, hard one to ballpark. I mean, building has a fire and we have to emergency demolish it. If it's a big building, I think it could be way more than that, or multiple buildings. But we haven't had to do very much. I believe this paid for some of the blight demolitions, Mayor, do you recall?
That's what I thought it was for.
I don't know if it's a separate.
So we haven't been doing very much of that because the housing market has been, so tight. So there's some variables there.
Any other questions? Okay, excellent. I appreciate the planning. One of the things we've often said is, we need to have a comprehensive plan for replacement of things. So I appreciate the thought in terms of, what can we do so that we can not incur huge costs, but make it a line item throughout, the year, so. Okay, any other? All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay. I don't think we're doing anything with the wonderful writing on the wall. New referrals for consideration, we have none. Committee reports, we have none. I do want to say, Mayor, who do we have on for tomorrow?
Tomorrow you'll have the clerk's office and IT.
And then, as you're kind of putting out your plan, can you just, because one of the things, just in terms of prepping, to make sure that they can ask questions ahead of time and streamline this, if you kind of give us, maybe at the end of the week, like who's coming up for Monday and Tuesday, that would work great. Okay, motion for adjourn? Okay. All right, Horny and Robinson, all in favor? Opposed? Anyone who's opposed is in trouble, so. Thank you, guys.